going to feel. So I have been saying to a lot of people, like, don't wait to feel anything and get concerned, because it doesn't take a symptom to necessarily mean that there's something there.
Yeah.
And for me, I just knew in my heart and I knew in my head, and I did have the pressure. And I did feel big pain.
So I think what I hear you say, and what's important as me, as a nurse who works in women's health, and we do a lot of procedures with myomectomies and hysterectomies, so I see cervix all the time. The important thing to know is the first step is actually awareness about what cervical cancer is, and then getting your annual Pap exams. I know there's a lot of controversy out here about how often women should get their Pap exams, but at least getting that first one to at least know what your baseline is. And then, of course, getting that Pap exam, that's what they're doing, that they're swabbing that cervix to see if there's any issues with that cervix, if there's precancerous lesions there, so they can be proactive in saying, these are the next steps. We need to watch it a little bit more closely. And I think for the audience, we need to make sure women are aware, get that Pap exam done. And because you're right, symptoms don't just show up out of nowhere. Symptoms don't show up like it's an STD. STD, you'll get the discharge, you'll get the burning, you'll get the itching. With cervical cancer, you're not going to get those symptoms. So you got to be able to go and see your GYN, get that Pap smear, get that follow-up when they say, hey, you had some abnormal cells. That means you need to come back in 6 months. So if it advances, you're able to catch it. And so you agree to that as well?
I do, yeah. I think that if you guys are saying 6 months, that's phenomenal. Like, that's really good to hear. For us, it's a year. So we have to wait a year in between those abnormal cells. I think 6 months is a lot better. I definitely feel in this situation for me, had things been hopped on an extra half a year difference, perhaps it wouldn't have gotten to the stage it did. And with the STDs too, like I said, we do learn about them here in schools, and schools do at a quite a young age here too. I would say I think it's about grade 6 now here, so the kids would be about 12. Mm-hmm. You do learn about STDs, but there's always that stuff that you don't actually hear about in class. So for me, I learned in that initial appointment that you can actually have an STD for quite a while and have no idea without having that regular Pap that you do, because some of them are born in your stomach and they spread. They can start in your tummy and they go down, and you could have it come back as well. Like, it's not like, for instance, chlamydia, like you can get treated for it and then it can come back, right? Because it's born in the stomach. So I definitely think that there is the controversy. I hear that a lot too. For us, I think right now they're saying every 3 to 5 years.
Mm-hmm. A lot can happen in 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, I would not agree with that at all.
Yeah. A lot can happen in 3 to 5 years, and I think now here in the U.S. there is a push for the HPV vaccine, which is the Gardasil, and you know, at an early age you can have your kid vaccinated with Gardasil, and now the recent reports have come out that you could even get Gardasil as old as 45 years old now to kind of protect yourself from the HPV virus and cervical cancer and things of that nature. So here there's a push and there's a vaccine for it, but parents have to be willing to understand what it means to have your kid vaccinated. You got to go back and get those other dosages. You can't just get one. There's multiple dosages that your kid has to get. But in the end, it protects the kid from cervical cancer. It protects the kid from any of these viruses that come from HPV, because it's constantly mutating. So we can have different strands in a year or so. So to protect your kid, I think it's important. And so my daughters, I got them vaccinated when it first came out, because to me, a vaccination is like the MMR or your measles, your mumps, and your rubella. You got to get your kid vaccinated for that. So why not get them vaccinated for against cervical cancer? And I think it's important for people to know, even though we're both women, that the boys can carry the HPV virus as well. So it's not a female disease. I mean, we have the cervix, but it's not just a female disease. It is boys as well. So they could be the carriers. They're walking around with it. But again, they can have anal cancer. They can have penile cancer, right? They can have throat cancer that's caused by the HPV virus. So I think it's important that the audience knows that we have to start with awareness, start with vaccination. If you're against vaccination, make sure you get those pap smears. Make sure you do those follow-ups, because if you can catch it, early detection will prevent you from having that LEAP procedure, which is very, very uncomfortable. And you can probably talk about that.
Yeah, it's not a pleasant experience. And one thing that I'll touch on with the Gardasil vaccine is 100%. It's got to be done, guys, before there's any interaction. It really needs to be done.
Yeah.
I was during my experience with this, I was told when I went for my first set of biopsies, hey, you should still go get this vaccine. That's not the case. You don't get it once you already have the issues, guys. It's before you get the issues. And here in Canada, I spent $1,000 getting this vaccine done. It doesn't help when you already have the issue. So get it when they're old enough to get the vaccine. Go back, do it. You know what? I walked out of that clinic and I got it that day after my biopsies. I was like, no, I got this. Power, I'm going to go do it. And I got it done and I went back, because you go 3 and 6 months, right?
Yeah.
So first, third, and sixth. And, you know, spend your investment on it at an early age, because it's not going to prevent it once you.
Absolutely. And I think that's a very good point, Brittany, because here in the U.S. it says the kids can start getting their HPV vaccine at 11. So the idea is to get them before they're sexually active. And we all know in today's time and age, 11 can even be an interesting time for kids to be exploring. But it's important that they came out with it at 11, because you're hoping that your kid is not sexually sexually active at that point, because it is sexually transmitted. So getting it before your kid is sexually active is the key, because it's sexually transmitted. So if you get it after it's been transmitted, it's like, well, you missed the ball.
It's a waste, right? And for me, I guess part of me knew that as well, but I trusted what they were saying. So I ran with it, and I was, okay, I got to jump on this. So it is 100% something that you have to do well before any sexual activity ever comes into play in order for it to be effective. And that's the only vaccine out there that's like that, right?
Absolutely.
So free vaccine, 100%. I stand behind it for children who are getting to that age and should have that coverage.
Exactly. All right, we have a question here from Chalk0926. What initially encouraged you to see medical treatment? Were there any symptoms, or was it a routine checkup?
Yeah, so we touched on that. Yes, I did have symptoms that led me to go, but the issue is that you need to be going prior to when symptoms happen. You need to be going on a regular basis to get a routine checkup, and not when you feel something.
Mm-hmm. And I think people need to know that the HPV virus stays latent in your body, kind of like the herpes virus that kind of stays dormant in the body until there's stress or there's something that causes an outbreak. And so HPV kind of does the same thing. It stays latent, it stays dormant in the body until something else happens that you're now immunosuppressed, and then the virus kind of shows up. And so you won't exhibit or have the symptoms that a typical STD would showcase. So therefore, it's important that you get your checkups. But more importantly, Brittany, I think it's important that people know it's an STD. So you got to be careful about the partners you're having. You got to ask that question from your partner. Have you been vaccinated? Have you been tested for HPV? And so it's also a relationship kind of question that you got to have with your partners as well, because you're going to be having sex with that person, so they can be giving you or transmitting you that HPV virus. And if you're looking for a symptom, it doesn't normally surface until something is bad. When it's bad is when the symptoms occur. And HPV causes cervical cancer. Therefore, it's in the literature that says cervical cancer is one of the most preventable and one of the most treatable